So Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web, he's shutting down the World Wide Web Foundation
Wow.
to focus on something called Solid. And I bet you're probably wondering why this is happening. What does it all mean?
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? I mean, Berners-Lee, he's not just moving on from the web. He seems like he's concerned about where it's gone,
Mm-hmm.
and he wants to almost course correct,
Yeah.
you know. And he's been pretty vocal about this, about his disappointment for years now.
Not exactly like a sudden thing then.
No, not at all. He's been saying, that the internet has become dominated by the self-interest of a few companies.
Right.
He sees the lack of control that we have over our data and the way these big companies are profiting from us.
Yeah.
It's a far cry from what he originally envisioned.
Right.
So he's really taking a stand here.
Yeah. It makes you think about all those targeted ads that we see and how much data we're just handing over without even thinking about it.
Absolutely.
But this Solid thing, what is it?
Right.
It sounds very like Star Trek.
It does have that kind of futuristic ring to it, for sure.
Yeah.
But at its core, Solid is really about a decentralized web.
Okay.
So imagine a web where you and I, we actually control our data.
Okay.
It's stored in what are called pods.
Okay, so we have decentralized pods. Paint a picture for me.
Yeah.
What does this actually look like?
Okay, so right now, think of it this way. The internet is this giant corporation, right? It controls everything.
Right.
But with Solid, imagine instead of that, a community garden.
Okay.
Where everybody has their own little plot.
Right.
They decide what they want to grow there. Okay. And they can choose to share what they grow, their data, with others, but it's always their choice.
Okay.
It's not up to the corporation.
I like that a community garden instead of a corporation.
Yeah.
So how do these pods fit into this?
So your pod is basically your secure plot in that garden. It's your own personal online data storage space.
Okay.
Your contacts, your photos, your browsing history, everything lives in your pod, and you decide who can access what part of it.
Okay.
It's not some big tech giant. It's you.
So no more handing over the keys to your entire digital life every time you use an app or a website.
Exactly. You've got it.
Okay.
It's about putting users in control. And Berners-Lee really sees this as essential for the future of the web.
This sounds like a huge undertaking.
It is.
Are we talking about rebuilding the entire structure of the internet as we know it?
I mean, yeah. We are. It's a massive task. There are huge technical challenges. Building a secure and scalable, decentralized architecture, that's not easy. We're talking about a completely different way of storing, accessing, and sharing data online.
And how do you even begin to convince the entire internet to switch to something new?
Yeah, you're right. You're touching on another big hurdle there. Adoption.
Yeah. Right.
For Solid to really work, you need buy-in from users, developers, the whole digital world. You need user-friendly apps. You need developers who are building on this new platform. People need to understand why this matters and actually get on board.
So we're talking about changing the very fabric of how we use the internet. But if it's about control and owning our data, how secure would a system like this actually be? So it sounds like we're talking about building some kind of digital fortress around our data with Solid. But how realistic is that?
I mean, that's a really good question. It's something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
Especially with your data spread out across a decentralized network.
Right.
You're not just relying on one company and their security. You're relying on this whole network of individual pods and apps.
So that sounds like a lot of potential weak points.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that your data is actually safe and protected in a system like that?
Right. Well, you have to have a really strong security, obviously,
Right.
really strong encryption, ways to control who accesses what, and ways to make sure it's really you accessing your stuff.
Okay.
And it all has to work without relying on one central server.
So it's instead of having one big wall around everything,
Right.
you're giving everyone the tools to build their own little walls.
Exactly.
But how do you get everyone to actually use those tools properly?
Yeah, that's the tricky part.
Right.
Right, because you're dealing with people, and you never know what people are going to do.
Right.
So people really need to be educated on how to manage their own data and how to keep it private in this new kind of internet.
It's everyone has to become their own security expert.
Yeah, kind of. It's
Yeah.
a different way of thinking about it, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say for a minute we can figure out the whole security thing. What does a solid internet actually look like? How does it work in real life?
Okay, so imagine this. You need to see a new doctor.
Okay.
Right now, you have to fill out all those forms, right?
Right. All that paperwork.
Exactly. And you have to repeat your entire medical history like every single time.
Every single time.
But with Solid, you could just give your doctor permission to share just the records they need
Okay.
with the new doctor's pod directly.
So no more giant stacks of paper.
Exactly.
Just like, boop, send it over.
Exactly.
That's it.
Sure and easy.
Okay, so less paperwork, more efficiency.
Right.
What about just like using the internet every day? How would that change?
Well, think about all the different accounts you have, all the logins and passwords.
And don't even get me started.
Right.
I have like a million little pieces of paper.
And you're always forgetting them.
Always.
With Solid, your pod becomes your one and only login.
Okay.
You just use that one login for everything.
Okay.
And you control what information each app or website can access.
So you're not giving them the master key to everything.
Exactly.
Just to the things that they need.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
It's about control, right? And it's
Yeah.
also about privacy. Like, imagine a world where companies couldn't track every single thing you do online.
Right.
No more creepy ads following you around.
Right.
You would be in control of your data and how it's used.
That's a big deal.
It is. It's really what Solid is all about.
It's a cool idea, but it seems like it would take a lot to get it to actually work.
Yeah.
Like it would require a totally different internet than what we have right now.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So are we like at a turning point? Like, is this where things change?
It feels that way, right? It feels big.
Yeah. But we've seen big ideas before.
Right.
And a lot of them don't work out. So is Solid the revolution that everyone's saying it is? Or is it just hype?
It's hard to say for sure. This is still pretty new.
Right.
But you can't deny the potential. Like, imagine an internet where you're really in control of your own stuff. Your data, your privacy, like, it just works. That's a future worth fighting for.
And this isn't just some random idea.
Right.
This is Tim Berners-Lee.
All right. The guy who invented the web, he's putting his name on this. That means something, right? Like, it brings a lot of attention and people who want to help. And remember, the World Wide Web Foundation put almost $5 million into this back in 22, so they're serious about it.
Wow. Okay, so what has to happen for Solid to actually become a thing?
Well, obviously the tech has to work right.
Right.
But more importantly, people have to use it. Users need to be like, yeah, I want this. And developers need to build the apps that make it easy to use. It has to be something everyone can get on board with.
So it's like a whole new way of thinking about the internet.
Exactly.
It's not just a tool, it's part of our lives.
Right. It's about realizing that we have a say in how this all works. We're not just along for the ride.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Solid Sierras, here's something for everyone to think about. What if you were in complete control online? What would you change? What would your ideal internet look like? That's an exciting idea. The future of the web might be in our hands. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.